to the Look and Learn class for braid pattern. I am SEANTAE Marie and this is my model. So right now I'm just showing you how thick her hair is, and she does have long hair. Okay, I did show a silk press on her. It will be on my YouTube channel under I am SEANTAE Marie. So what you want to do for starters is you want to go ahead and drape your client just in case she has bad dandruffs. And this is also really good for you just in case you want to take photos, because you want to see all those little particles on their clothing. Alright, and then I'm just going to go ahead and section out her hair thoroughly. Just check her scalp, make sure everything is good, and ensure that I am able to service her. So if you see her scalp, if you see any like cuts and bruises, and if there's bleeding, then you can definitely tell your client, hey, let's wait until this heals before I go ahead and do that. You also, as a stylist, want to make sure that you wear gloves if necessary. I don't wear gloves. I used to wear gloves, but I felt like my clients felt really weird and awkward, and I didn't want them to think that, you know, I felt like they were dirty or anything like that. So I stopped wearing gloves. But again, gloves do protect us ladies, okay? So what you want to start off is with the products that you need or the supplies that you need. I am using braiding hair. I will be using scissors or blade if you have either or. Okay, you want to make sure you have a rat tail comb and a wide tooth comb. Any duckbills, clips to section out the hair and clip that hair away. And then you also want to make sure that you have some type of oil. If I'm not using my SWANK'D Organics oil, I am using regular oil. Alright, what you want to do is start off by detangling your client's hair. She has a lot of hair, so we're definitely going to use this to section out her hair and part it and push it away. If you do not detangle, you will be assisting with breakage for the client's hair. Also, if you do not detangle, it will take the braiding process to be a little bit longer. So typically when I braid down my clients, depending on the pattern, it should take you anywhere from 30 minutes to 45 minutes. But in this case, she has long, thick hair, so it can take me up to 55 minutes. Well, let's just push for an hour. So when you're detangling, you want to start from the ends and work your way up to her roots. Sometimes I like to finger comb while I'm combing the hair. So after I go from the ends and then hit that root, then I'll go ahead and finger comb and ensure that I'm getting all the kinks out. So my fingers act like it's a bigger comb, and then you have that wide tooth comb, if that makes any sense. Okay, go ahead and do that all throughout her hair. And as you'll see, she does need a trim. All that thickness, child, honey. It's so funny because I have clients that will come in and say, girl, I'm so sorry I have so much hair. I'm like, no, that's the whole point. That's what we want, for you to have hair. We want healthy, long, natural hair. We want to grow your hair, extend your tresses. Like, do not apologize for that. Oh, I got a big head, girl. No, you don't. You just have a head full of hair. I try to make my clients feel as comfortable as possible. So if you see someone with a lot of hair, please don't discourage them or be discouraged. That just adds to your revenue, to your to increase your income. Okay. All right, there you have it. That's the back part, and it's looking way fuller than before, ain't it? Oh Jesus, please pray for me. So there you go, just showing you how her hairline looks. It's full and thick. If you went ahead and purchased my online class for the install of the versatile Sewin, I did use a model that was opposite of her, meaning she has thin hair. attention to her facial expressions. I do like to verbally ask them if they're okay, but I like to look as well because clients will be like, oh, I'm good, girl. And then you don't pay attention, and then at the end, they're like crying, like, oh, and I'm like, well, I did ask you. Alright, so go ahead and find your rat tail comb, and we're going to go ahead and start the parting process for her leave out. And if you're doing a leave out for a middle part, that means less hair is left out, and that way more extensions are put or installed into your client's hair. So that way the style will then look a little bit fuller, because you can go ahead and play with the amount of hair that you want to add to your client's hair. So right now we're doing the rat tail comb test, as I stated at the beginning. And what you want to do is you want to section off the amount of hair that you think you should leave out, and go ahead and place it over the comb. And once you see the comb disappear or it's not visible anymore, that's the amount of hair that you would want to leave out. And the rat tail comb acts as a replacement for the extensions of where the extensions will be seamless on your client's hair. If you're a professional, you can go ahead and still do this test, but you wouldn't have to leave out as much as I'm doing right now. You could leave out even an inch if you know how to seamlessly install the client's hair as a sew-in, okay? So you can go ahead and use a duckbill clip to section and part away her hair. But again, I like to use rubber bands to keep the flyaways as well out of the way for while I'm braiding her hair. The only reason why I don't use a duckbill clip is because it tends to slip out, and it's just taking away from the time while I'm braiding her hair, because then I'm distracted and I have to go ahead and adjust it or whatever the case may be. So again, this is for versatile sew-in, and versatile sew-in is basically a sew-in that adds, that allows your client to have a middle or side part or both, and also for those who want to put their hair into a ponytail. So you're just going to continue the rat tail comb test throughout the whole perimeter of her hair for her leave out. And as you notice, when I get by her ears, because of the way how her head is shaped, you want to go ahead and work with the shape of her head. So instead of going straight down, as you see here, you're going to go ahead and correct it and make it round so that it mimics the shape of her ears, if that makes any sense. I'm just going ahead and seeing how much hair I would have to leave out, and I'm correcting my parting. Yes, hunty, so time for that nape area. So when you get to the back part of your client's head, just be mindful that this is again for a leave out for a ponytail install. So as you can see, she has a lot of short pieces in the back, so I'm just taking a little bit of her longer hair just in case she wants to do like a ponytail midway of her head, and if she wants to bring it up just a little bit, that some type of hair can go into that scrunchie. So now we're working with the top part, which is for a center part, and her hair is really thick, and yeah, I could leave less hair out than that, but again, we want to make sure that her tracks are covered, because this is not just to follow natural gravity, and it's not only for a middle part. I have to make sure that enough hair is left out, so just in case she wants to go ahead and comb that hair backwards, that her tracks are still being covered. So in this part, I'm just leaving an inch out for both parts, and for the back, you can square it off, or you can round it off. I'm going to go ahead and round it off. We are now sectioning off the last part of her leave out. And I want to say it roughly took me about 5 to 10 minutes, okay? Shouldn't be that long, but if you are including the rat tail test comb, just say 10 minutes. So first part is you're gonna go ahead and start with the top part. You wanna make sure your tracks is nice and flat. Your partings will not be thick, okay? And that is key. So why do I have braiding hair? I have braiding hair because at the starting of the braid, you want to make sure that the hair is not too thin, so when you go to install a track there, you have some type of support, which would be the braid. Also, it ensures that there's no breakage. I stayed in place until I crossed those hair strands over about 4 to 5 times, and then I went ahead and traveled. I'm not adding a lot of space in between each strand that's folding over. I'm staying in place but still gliding down, just to make sure that it's not too tight, because if you're just gliding with the hair, then you're pulling the hair at that point. And we do not want to add any stress or tension to the client's head, especially before you're installing tracks, because installing tracks after a braid down, that increases the tension. And the only reason why I'm not starting the foundation, the braid foundation here, is because I want the perimeter, the first 2 perimeter braids, to be as flat as possible. So these will be connector braids, or braids that are loose. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and start the other braid. And again, this is braid number 1 for the perimeter braids. You want to take as little bit of hair as possible. So half of an inch, if you will. Again, this is just to ensure that her first set of braids are as small as or as tiny as possible. You do not have to use extensions. It is optional. But I'm using extensions because it's better for her perimeter. Depending on how long the client leaves their install in for, the hair can tend to get matted, or whatever the case may be. So it's easier for you to distinguish that braid in order to remove it. So again, once you install the first part of that braid, you want to stay in place for about 4 to 5 overlaps of each hair strand, and then you want to go ahead and start going down with the braid. Do not pull or tug on her hair. And also, while you're braiding, say, hey, am I pulling your hair too much? Or listen, Sarah, or whoever your client is going to be at the time, let me know, hey, you're pulling, ow, or whatever the case may be. It may be annoying if they say it often, but at least you'll know that you are heavy-handed. We don't want heavy-handers, okay? We do, at the end of the day, ultimately, the health of their hair is what counts. Yes, we want a flawless install, but also we want our client to be as comfortable as possible. Those first 2 braided rows are crucial to your install, okay? That is what's going to determine whether your install is going to be flat or not. So as you can see, I did unravel the braid so I can continue with braiding her hair down, because I don't want it to be loose. And then it'll show like a disconnection, if that makes any sense. So I'm rounding her braids off, and then I'm working around her ear area. As you can see, it's curved, it's not straight. Again, that is just to work with the shape of her head. So at this point, I'm just traveling with the braid, and I'm still being mindful that I do not want to tug or grip her hair more than I need to. Don't be afraid to move your client's head, not in a rough manner, just to make sure that your body's position is okay and you're not adding too much stress on your body. I find that my back, when I first started to do braids like this, that my back was killing me. But again, you want to go ahead and adjust the styling chair as needed. Make sure that your arms are positioned well and you are moving the client's head. you are going to go ahead and use a client or a model with thinner hair than the one that's in the chair now, please take note that you can do the same section-ins or partings that I am doing now. But that's if you're going to use braiding hair to substitute for the thinness of the hair. So say the hair is that thin and you still want to fill it in, you can use braiding hair. Or if you want to go ahead and save some time, you can use bigger partings because the hair is thin already. And you don't have to incorporate braiding hair. You can only incorporate braiding hair around the first perimeter and the first 2 top braids that I showed you at the beginning. Alright, so once I crossed over the second loose braid, instead of starting a new braid, I'm just going to go ahead and use that one and start the second row for her perimeter braids. Make sure that you're as close as possible to the first row of braids. And once you hit the corners, make sure you're pushing downwards on the braid versus pulling the braid or pulling the hair so that it can be tight. As you can see, that first corner right there. Again, don't be scared to move your client's head so that you can make sure that you're braiding her hair properly. Okay, at this point you can see how I'm pushing the hair downward and slowly turning without pulling the hair. Stay stationary. 1, 2, 3, turn. Stay stationary again so that that corner is intact and it's not pulling. There you go. Nice and flat. If you didn't want to go ahead and do that, you could have did the way how I did the first set of braids, which was on the top. You could have did 2 more rows to make it 3 if you feel like your corners will not be as flat and sitting nicely as it is for this model right now. If you feel like you're heavy-handed, go ahead and advise your client to take a painkiller before she comes and gets serviced by you. So as you can see, that first loose braid from the back, it was incorporated to start the second braided row. And then for the second loose braid from the first braided row, will be just clipped away as I braid around in a circle, and it will just be tucked away until I can then add it to the whole foundation. So just like the one loose braid that's at the back, all the other braids are going to go over those braids as well until I can then incorporate it into the middle part of her foundation and add it to the braids. If that does not make any sense, please keep on watching. Alright, so as you can see, from the top view, those 2 braids, they're not in the way. I'm still covering the braids and my foundation is still uniformed. So on this side, the only difference is we're braiding downwards versus upwards. Okay, if you feel like you need assistance, you can use a clip to clip the section off and hold it into place around the corners and continue. But in this case, I don't need to. Again, take note that her braids are getting fatter. And that's only because of the density and the thickness of her natural hair. So at this point, you do not want to use braiding hair, honey boo. It's definitely not needed. You can continue working with the amount of hair that you were sectioning off prior to, but again, because we're getting so close to the center and her hair is super thick, I'm just going to go ahead and smudge that out just a little bit and make it a little bit smaller. What I'm going to do is bring that loose hair up. As you can see, it's still flat and it's under those 2 other braids, and just clip it away. And the only reason, again, why I'm not adding it is because it's so thick. So if I was to add it now, incorporate it into that set of braids, it will make the thickness of the braid way fatter than it needs to be. And at that point, you're going to be throwing off your foundation. Alright, so there you go. You're just going to braid regular. Once you reach to the braid part, the other braid that's going to be underneath, just go ahead and grip the hair a little bit tighter and then you can loosen up after you pass that braid. As you can see, all the braids are uniform. Even if it's going a little bit bigger in size, it does not matter because it's just taking up space. Alright? And it will be a little bit trickier here, trying to hit her corners. But once again, you can use a clip to hold the corner down. But don't forget to stay stationary and make sure that you're overlapping each hair strand 3 to 4 times if needed, but 2 to 3 times minimum, just to make sure that that corner is sitting pretty and proper. The trick to these corners, once you get more to the center part of her head, is you don't want to pick up way too much hair than needed. You're picking up small chunks of hair that has to be braided down. And that's how you're going to be able to make sure that that hair stays down and is still stuck or kissing the previous braided row. And as you can see here, again, I'm using that clip to make sure that the hair is down and it's not pulling, so that there leaves any gaps between that previous braided row and the one that you're currently working on. And please don't be terrified or scared about the corners. You can always tack that down if you feel like you weren't able to braid it down properly, okay? As you can see, I still have those 2 loose braids out. I did not incorporate them as of yet. But remember what I stated at the beginning, once you get to the center, it does not matter because that doesn't determine whether her install is flat or not. Remember I said it's the first 2 braided rows. I did tuck away one of the loose ends from the first set of braids that we did that was on top, and the other one is going to be incorporated into this braid. Why, Shantae? Why can I do it now? Because we're in the center doesn't really matter. Yes, you still want it to be flat, but again, we have to braid everything up. So again, it's not going to disrupt this braid that we're doing now, but it will add a little bit of thickness to it. But not as noticeable if I was to do it previously, because her ends are way thinner than her roots, if that makes sense. So you know how when you first start your braid, like if you're doing a single braid, it's fatter at the top, and then once you get to the ends, it's a little thinner. We're filling in the space, and her braids are still uniform and sitting together. Needle you can find it at your local beauty supply store. It cuts down on time because it's long, so you're able to grip the needle way better than a short needle. And you want to start off with tacking down the braid that you feel is sticking out. My braids are intact, but I'm just doing this for the sake of this video. You can sew on her hair directly, but I like to use a mesh so that I can freelance with wherever I'm stitching, meaning I can go wherever I choose to go, and also that way her hair is more flat and uniform, and she can make sure that her hair lasts longer with the application of a mesh. And when she goes to wash her hair out, her hair is going to stay together because you have the mesh sewn down. Also, it acts as a barrier. So say your client doesn't come to you and she wants to take her hair out, or you, doesn't really matter, but that'll stop her from actually cutting her own hair. Because some people, when they're cutting their tracks out, they tend to cut their hair. So I feel like the net helps with that, with preventing that. Okay, so final step is you want to cut the excess thread off. And please don't forget to moisturize your client's scalp before the braid down or after. It does not matter. And there you have it. Thank you so much, ladies, for tuning in. I appreciate you.